Welcome to Wake Up with Joni. This podcast is designed to help you come off automatic and wake up to living your life to the absolute fullest. Each week, we will have a special guest whose purpose it is to help you do just that. From wisdom keepers to healers to leadership experts and coaches from around the globe, we will bring you cutting-edge information and tools so that you can take charge and live your most alive lives. Today's guest is Philip Folsom. He's an anthropologist, culture development expert, and president and CEO of Wolf Tribe. He's also the co-founder of Valor, a PTS and resiliency program for warriors and first responders. Philip is known for his unique adventure programs and tribe workshop that focuses on primary culture components of building healthy and high-performing teams. I've had a personal experience of you, which is why I'm thrilled to have you here. Welcome, Philip.
It's a treat to be here. Really fun.
All
Great
right.
to see you again. You look great.
Oh, thank you.
You do look fabulous. So what's different in the last 6 months with you?
I went to blonde, which I've always been a blonde. You met me as a brunette. That was brief. But I am completely off gluten and wheat, and I'm working out. And I'm doing yoga 5 times a week. Spinning. I'm back on it. Just feel healthy in all respects. Yeah.
It's noticeable.
Thank you.
You look great. You look great.
You. Wow.
It's tangible when you see somebody, who has woken up. You can see, they're back living that higher vibration life.
Yes. When I just met you right after we had moved. So energetically, I was discombobulated. I went from the ocean to the mountain, and it's a whole new life. So I found my groove.
Nice.
Yeah.
Joni got her groove back.
Got my groove back. That's literally what it is. Okay. So my first question to you is, how did you come to be doing what you're doing? Because what you're doing is so extraordinary and powerful and specialized. And I know you started off as an anthropologist. So can you give us a little blurb about how you came to be?
Yeah. I actually didn't start off as an anthropologist. I was just looking for a field of study that bracketed what I was interested in and what I was already doing. That's the study of people, anthropology. I could do applied psychology. I could have gone down that road. But you and I are both leadership people, the leadership book is on the same shelf as anthropology and psychology and any of this other work. It's really about the human condition. And I think people who are uncomfortable with their childhoods are the ones that are pushed into some sort of exploration, because when we're comfortable, it's easy to go to sleep, and people stay asleep when they're comfortable. And it's one of the reasons, just to jump into politics right off the bat, is that the powers that be want their people, if they're trying to control their people, they want them asleep.
Yes, easier to control.
And the Romans would give them bread and circuses. So, hey, don't foment and agitate and don't wake up, because then you start asking questions. People need to be uncomfortable before they wake up and start asking questions. And the questions are initially about, who are the villains in the world who are causing me this discomfort? Who are the saviors that are going to come fix my problems? And why am I such a victim? That's the adolescent state that people wake up into.
Yeah.
And at some point, we realize that's not the case.
Right. I was going to say, do you think that they even have the consciousness that, why am I a victim? They don't even know they're a victim. They're just in the victimhood.
Correct. It is pervasive.
Yes.
And that's the asleep point in everyone's lives that is referred to in almost all spiritual systems. I have some word for the people who are asleep. They're in bondage. The slaves in Israel, the Buddhists call them hungry ghosts. And these are the phantom sleeping people who have such tiny mouths they can't actually eat anything. So they're endlessly hungry.
Wow.
And so they're trying to fill their holes with distractions and coping mechanisms, whether it be social media or alcohol, porn. So those are the only things you can get in that tiny hole. Like, those are the ghosts. So most of the world is in that asleep stage, And this is where the hero's journey begins, is the hero always waking up to the call to adventure. They're waking up to the inadequacy of their current state and realizing that they have either lost something that was incredibly important to them, or something else is available to them that is connected to their destiny or their calling. And that's the beginning of every hero's journey, is that moment.
And I always call that moment when staying the same becomes more painful than the change, the pain of change, being willing to take the risk and do what needs to be done. So I loved how you tied in, because that's why this podcast is called Wake Up. And for some people, they're thinking, oh, I'll wake up and have a cup of coffee with Joni. And I'm like, wake up if you choose. That's the other part. I don't need anybody to wake up, but wake up if you choose. So where did you wake up? And
people don't choose when they're asleep.
Good point.
It's not available to them. Choice is not available when you're asleep. So you can say it's available. You can tell everyone that, look at this extraordinary life you could be living. But that choice is not available to them, because choice is a function of awareness. And when you're asleep, you're not aware. So even though we could be living divine lives, fully optimized, using huge portions of our brain, having a flawless metabolisms and altruistic thinking, we could meditate 10 hours a day, and that it's all available to us. But it's only if we're awake to that, to the point that we can actually choose it. And most people are simply not conscious enough to take advantage of that. And I certainly wasn't. Back to my origin story.
Yeah.
We were talking about the people who are dealing with some sort of pain are the ones that go on this journey. The wounded healer is a mythological archetype. All heroes have a trauma origin story. And so do all villains, by the way. They have the same origin story. The difference is the villains end up waking up to their trauma and then wreaking vengeance upon the world, whereas heroes look at themselves and transcend it.
Yeah.
And so I certainly I did my time in both of those roles. I joined the military at 17 as an escape to my upbringing, which had a lot of neglect and discomfort and what they call pre-trauma or adverse childhood experiences, or ACE. And the people who have adverse childhood experiences have a direct correlation between incarceration time, violence, addiction, mental health issues, post-traumatic stress has a direct correlation to your ACE score, which is why they actually give police officers now an ACEs test assessment to go, hey, how much childhood trauma did you have? Because there are certain careers that call traumatized, particularly young men, into.
Yes.
And military and police are two of them, because you're questing after structure and power, and there's some salvation in that life path.
Yes.
And adapted people end up coping very well with adverse trauma, whereas people with high ACE scores tend to deal with more symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
So you don't want them in there, because if they get triggered, they go offline. Their limbic system hijacks them. You don't want that with a gun.
Yeah, and it's not so much as weeding people out with a particular personal history. It's about teaching them that their childhood experiences have rewired their brain to recreate what is familiar to them. And there's definitely a cognitive bias to people with early childhood development challenges, in that they end up seeking out those same maladaptive relationships they had when they were young. And so it's about informing people that this, in the hero's journey, they call it a dragon born of childhood trauma. It is part of you, and we all have our own dragon. Those of us who had more challenging childhoods have a bigger dragon. And at some point, mythologically, that's what heroes do, is they go fight their dragon, or they get defeated by it. Again, that's the villain or the hero story, is you either become it or you transcend it.
Yes.
And so in my case, I did the military and a bunch of other careers. And at some point, I stumbled into this leadership field, which you and I are both part of. And I realized I didn't know it existed. I didn't know that there was a field that existed that allowed people to explore and discover and then transform the human condition, whether that be like you and I do, working with corporate groups and helping them be more resilient and make money and be successful, or personal growth groups, or what all these other subsets of the leadership field. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, why would you do anything else?
It's so rewarding. Oh my gosh.
Like, why would you choose any other career if this is available?
Yeah.
Endless progression of yourself intentionally, not just on the weekends, not like one retreat a year, or I'm going to try to read a leadership book by this month. No, you're in it. You're in the arena, leveling up your humanity, your operating system all the time in real world applications.
Yes. Yes.
As soon as I started doing that, I was like, oh, yep, that's what I'm going to do. So for me, the anthropology piece was started studying that, doing graduate work at UCLA. And because I wanted to know the roots of it, because I knew that my experience of all these challenges I had, mental, emotional challenges, sobriety issues, and anger issues, and depression issues, like I know that's not the birthright of humanity. I know that's not a standard operating system for a creature on the planet. And so I wanted to study other cultures, particularly indigenous cultures. And I was correct. I'm corroborated that there is no depression and anxiety and addiction and suicide in indigenous cultures.
Interesting.
And you go talk to many cultures in Africa, and some of them have heard about America. Like, that's where people kill themselves.
Wow.
Or they're like, or they don't understand it. When you say, how is your suicide condition here with the men and the Maasai? And they're like, what's that word? That's what, when you kill yourself. Why would somebody kill themselves? Why would they do that? Nobody does that. And you're like, yeah, nobody does that.
So so if I can just ask a real quick question here, when you say indigenous culture, see, I think Native American Indians, but they have been so indoctrinated in the Western.
There's no tribes left.
No, here. Okay. All right. Okay.
We have contemporary tribes that run big casinos, and there's very little of the culture left. There's some.
Got it.
Obviously, there's still sweat lodges being operated, Lakota, and there's a very vital connection to indigenous cultures in the deep Southwest. When you look at the Pueblo culture down the Four Corners, that's still a functioning indigenous culture. They have giant powwows. They still live in huge pueblos. They have corn ritual ceremonies. That one's pretty close to being indigenous. It's still there.
Right.
There are some tribes there's a wonderful tribe down at the very bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
Called the Havasupai.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah, and it's just a crazy, it's a crazy place where they fly their food down in a helicopter every day, and there's horses running around in the streets. And again, not indigenous, but isolated enough that there is certainly a unique culture formed. But
yeah, that was my first big hike when I decided I was going to be an athlete in my 50s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a hike. That's a hike.
It is indeed. Yep. Yep. Okay. So why do you think the Pueblo, and then we'll go back to what we were talking about, but why do you think their culture stayed fairly intact and not others?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There generally is going to be some socioeconomic reason. And I'm going to propose that many of the places that still maintained their cultures were not attractive enough to Western society for them to come steal it, the land.
Interesting.
Usually it's going to be some sort of desert community where, you can keep that land.
Yeah.
We're going to take all the good land, but you keep that land.
Yeah.
There was thousands and thousands of tribes with their own cultures and their languages on the East Coast and the Midwest, and they're all gone. Anyway, so in addition to all the mental health stuff that doesn't exist in indigenous cultures, you see that most of our physical diseases also do not exist in indigenous cultures. Diabetes is almost non-existent. Cancer is very rare. Heart disease, all of these things are almost non-existent.
And they're eating real food.
It's bigger than food.
And less stress.
There you go. It's really about that.
Yeah.
Is that human beings are designed to operate in kinship systems where we feel safe, we have a sense of belonging, we have a sense of meaning, and it's all derived from our relationships that we have with other people within our kinship system. And when we are removed from that kinship system, we see a tremendous boost in stress hormones and cortisol and norepinephrine and adrenaline. And really, when you getting into that chronic stress, that's when we're starting to see all the inflammation that literally is the source of all of our problems, including cancer and heart disease. Everything that's killing us is really stress related at some point. And the biggest stress we have is the fact that, number one, when we are isolated from our kinship system, that triggers a death response in our amygdala. Excommunication is the next worst sentence in a kinship system.
To death.
Execution is the worst. You did something so bad that we kill you. Okay, that's bad. The next worst thing is we kick you out of the tribe. Because you die. It's basically, it's just a slow death. It's sentencing you to a slow death. And that's excommunication.
Interesting.
And we've been using that forever. The church still does it, the Catholic Church. And we're certainly doing it in cancel culture right now.
That's it.
Yeah, I said the wrong thing, or I said the wrong thing 20 years ago. And so we're going to excommunicate you. And it's a painful thing. It's connected to shame. That's why people don't like shame. Brene Brown, she did built a career on shame research without realizing that shame in itself is it's a evolutionary design feature to regulate behavior with humans. So it's an important component. It means it's basically a pain receptor. Don't touch the stove and don't do things that are shameful.
Yes.
Or you'll feel this terrible experience of shame.
One of the things I wanted to make sure I said to you is when you started speaking a little while ago, you said, I went through this and this and this, and there was no charge on it. It's like, this was part of my journey. This is part of my history. It's not who I am today. This is, of course, this is all in my head. And there was zero shame, which I loved. And I wanted to point out, which you just brought up, because people out there, they may be living with the shame of X, Y, or Z, thinking that's just the way it's always going to be. And for me, going back to the thing about choice, I got so low, the dark night of the soul, it is the hero's journey, but it got so low that it didn't feel like a choice. It was a choice. I could stay how I was in this slow death, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of it, or I can go over here where it's unknown and take a chance. So I just want to acknowledge that. So I'm looking at a very robust, successful, powerful man who is making a difference in the world. And this is where I came
from. Joni. Don't stop.
Stop that. So you know what I'm saying, though. You're not, and you're saying, and this is what happened. And here's my journey. You can join too. Come along.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I tracked you there. We were talking about indigenous cultures and stress.
Yeah. Just the anthropology journey.
Okay, good.
And that we as a species are not designed to be alone, and we can't be alone. And yet here we are alone, surrounded. Now, I live in Venice Beach, California. This is where Los Angeles hits the ocean. So I'm surrounded by 10 million people around.
Yeah.
And I'm looking out like across my yard at a house that's, I could throw a lemon and hit that house. And I don't know the person's name who lives in that house. Well, I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's not because I'm an isolated person. Like, I actively am a community building person. We have big walls, literally big walls. And we roll our windows up in our cars and we walk around with headphones on and we stare at our phones. And it's very hard to connect with people because we're so isolated, even though we're surrounded by people. So the isolation it's a practical, it's not literal, it's practical. But what happens is we're still dealing with all of those isolation biochemical downstream effects. So that's what's destroying us as a culture, is that thing. And the accelerator of the dis-ease of that is that not only is it horrific for any kind of pack animal to be isolated, and it's the way that most pack animals, wolves and horses and elephants and whales, they're all matriarchal, and the female rules the herd or the pack with the threat of excommunication. That's how that's the big tool. It is shame, and that's how it functions. That's terrible on its own, is feeling isolated. But the other one is to be around a stranger is even worse. To be around strangers for humans is terrifying. And again, that's not our prefrontal cortex up here, our seat of consciousness, executive function. But in here, brainstem, when we are around another human being, that is legitimately the scariest super predator the world has ever seen. And we stand in little metal boxes called elevators with other super predators, and they stand right behind us. Our bodies are screaming at us at how unsafe this is. We're isolated and threatened all the time.
So talk to me about, how did COVID, for example, exacerbate or accelerate or destroy or maybe wake people up to needing tribe? What is your opinion?
It's proving to be more and more that COVID was just a total shit show. And again, we could get into the whole politics of that. But many people, it was an absolute nightmare, particularly people who don't have access to what you and I have. You're living in a beautiful place, you have means, you have community, and I have the same thing. I'm looking at my lemon tree out here in my yard, and it's great. And so COVID was a fun little thing that the Folsoms did. Like we did puzzles, and we got to bond together in this unique way that we would never have had before. And so it was cool. But I know a lot of kids who they got their one meal a day at school.
Yeah.
Poor kids. Yeah. Poor kids who don't have the internet at home. They're sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 people. There's no place to go, no internet. And their only hope in terms of growth and community and nutrition is going to school. Sorry, we decided we're not going to do that for you. And so it was disastrous, including just the loss of, I think what you're alluding to is just the fabric, the tenuous fabric of that holding society together just got shredded.
Yeah. Interesting.
Not good. And a short answer, not good.
It sucked. So let's break down your what you do is 3-tiered, right? Or 3-pronged. You have 3 different businesses, so to speak. I would love to hear about each of them. But also, one of the things that was the most powerful thing, that when you and I met, we were on an offsite, we were on a ropes course that you did. And so that's all part of what you do too. It's incredibly powerful and lasting. So it's that whole experiential piece. So start wherever you want, but I want to hear it all.
Okay. A ropes course is, most people have heard or seen what a rope is. You put on a harness and you climb up things. And everybody's born with 2 fears. One of them is a fear of falling. And all the rest of the fears that you listeners have, you can thank your parents for. So the fear of falling is one of these innate fears that no human likes, being up in an exposed place where they could fall because you die. Okay. And so a ropes course is basically a controlled fear experience. We use heights. And what's wonderful about it is, again, it gets everyone. Whereas you could do nudity or snakes or public speaking, and you're going to get some people and you're going to miss others. With heights, you get them all. And a well-facilitated ropes course means you're attaching some other practical and useful theme or metaphor to the experience those people are having, because the way we do something is the way we do everything. So if I'm moving into a stressful heights experience and I start making excuses, or I start to shut down, or I start to go really fast to get through it, you're seeing me in stress everywhere in my life. You're seeing my operating system revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it at work. I do it with relationships. I do it with in traffic. Like, you're seeing me. And there's a chance to become aware, to wake up to, this is you. This is how you operate when you're under stress. And once you've woken up, that means now you've been gifted awareness to make a different choice. So how would you like to finish the rest of this event now that you are awake? Like, Philip, would you like to actually now slow down, enjoy the view, ask for help, become aware, celebrate? Oh, was that all available to me? Yeah, it was. And it always has been. The ropes course is just a powerful methodology that is, again, this is ancient.
Yeah.
Humans have been learning experientially for forever. It is our prime modality of learning, is interacting with the world, not classrooms, not online, not digital programs and workshops and theory and Zoom. It doesn't work. It's good for information, but it doesn't actually integrate anything. The ropes course has been around for a long time. The first formal ropes course was initiated in, it was back, I know this is a tangent, but it's a good story.
We like tangents.
Most people don't hear this, but in World War II, the British were getting some of the Jews out of the way of the Nazis, and one of them was named Hahn. I think it was Kurt Hahn, if I'm correct. He's a statistician.
Very good.
And so he was doing some work with the war efforts. And one of the things he was studying was the merchant marines that were basically stealing all of the supplies from America to England, keeping the British alive, and the Germans were torpedoing them at a horrific rate. And he noticed this discrepancy between these sailors who went into the freezing cold water of the North Atlantic, and the men who were under the age of 40 died at an alarming rate. It was 90%. The men over 40 were surviving, which should not make any sense, because the young ones are hard to kill. Like, they're healthy and vital and everything works. Like, you can swim and like all those things. So he did a big study on this. And what he basically discovered is that the old men had experienced enough adversity in their life that they refused to die.
That's it.
Yeah. Is that when you've been through hard things, and everyone listening, you have survived 100% of the adversity in your life. You're batting 100-0. Like, you are undefeated in your life. And the longer you have experienced that reality, the more you realize that, I guess I'll survive this too. And the young people are like, oh, the sky is falling. The worst thing just happened. My ship is sinking in the North Atlantic. This is a complete nightmare. And you're done. Whereas if you've been on a sinking ship, you're like, get on something that floats, and then they'll pick you up, and then
you keep your torso out of the water.
Yeah. So basically, he started standing up adversity programs to increase the grit and resiliency of sailors. And that thought process or methodology came to the United States in the form of Outward Bound. And to see the first, it's like very challenging, uncomfortable backcountry experiences and heights, mountaineering, all those things.
Yeah.
So that was the genesis of the ropes course outdoor education school that I was brought up in, is doing adversity, working whether horses or sweat lodge or vision quests or any of those things.
I'm still working with somebody from that offsite, and you came up today. Oh. She said, "Do you remember that I learned at that ropes course, because it's the experiential part of this really goes in so deeply. It's part of your cells. And she said, and I said, I'm doing a podcast with Philip today. He goes, he said some things that I did not like them. I didn't like him, but now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she'll remember you forever. But that's part of the commitment to people is,
Yeah.
here's something you might want to look at.
I have accepted that if I'm going to really do my work, that it's very hard waking people up. It's a painful process. Birth is not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's bloody and violent. I mean, the process of waking up is bloody and violent.
Yeah. And what I find interesting is that the groups that we're working with, depending on the group, there's a different receptivity or foundation of knowing. So with the corporate people, they fascinated me because a lot of them had never done any of this. It was the first time for them to go, oh my gosh, I have a choice here. I can feel different. Oh, that's where that came from. Oh my gosh, I see what I'm doing. It's like, bing, bing, but still uncomfortable. Still the birth process, as you say. But anyway, very powerful. So that's tied into, we also did the wolf tribe where.
We played with some wolves.
Yes. But
I know
your lecture
you can't
before,
see this.
No, he's holding up a nice wolf head right now, a skull.
It's a skull. Yeah.
It's a skull. Yeah, that didn't sound good, a whole wolf head. So can you just talk a little bit about the wolf tribe and I think it was 30,000 years ago, how that correlates?
Humans, the majority of our time on planet, we've been around for about 300,000 years, and most of that has been in a low-level scavenger status. We are not apex predator in terms of fossil records. We're getting to the prey at the very end. Like, we're not the big hunters that we are, what we think of in terms of us with spears hunting bison and mastodon. That only started with our partnership with the wolf at 35,000 years ago in Northern Europe, across to Siberia. We see this remarkable interspecies alliance that was built. And there's a lot of different ideas about how that happened and why it happened. But the reality is we're so similar to wolves that even though anatomically, morphologically, we're radically different. Like, they're canines and quadrupeds and all those things. And we're obviously primates and bipedal. But in terms of the culture, we are shockingly similar. We both have shame. We both run the same kinship systems. We have the same roles of behavior within the tribe or pack. We were one of the few species that expresses altruism, meaning that we will sacrifice ourselves for the sake of our pack or tribe mate. We recognize that both wolves and humans take a long time to learn the skill set of being valuable to the tribe. They need to be invested in, and therefore they're very valuable. We need to do whatever we have to do to keep them alive. Even when they're wounded or hurt, we'll take care of them. The list goes on and on. In fact, many early paleoanthropologists have said, we are the children of a wolf-like ape. That was Arith Reed, I think. So when we partnered with the wolf, that was what's referred to as our cognitive revolution. We transformed from a low-level scavenger that was well below the extinction rate threshold. We were very rare on the planet. We were not successful. And we completely leapfrogged the entire rest of the animal kingdom because of that partnership. And from that point on, we swept around the globe, basically hunting all the megafauna to extinction. And we were extraordinarily successful at the end. It really has to do with that one partnership with that species. So we have since then obviously rejected the wolf because we fear what is similar to us. And this is a psychological truth that the crosstown rivals are always the ones that hate each other the most. The Catholics and the Protestants hate each other the most. The Muslims and the Jews hate each other the most. Like, you guys are the same people. They're exactly the same people. And wolves and humans,
Wow.
We hated the wolf into extinction, almost. All the contemporary mythology of the big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood and all of those things. And none of it's true. There's been no confirmed wolf deaths in North America. Even back the Native Americans, they revered the wolf. They called it the teacher. And there's a lot of wolf myths, but one of them is that at one point, the great creator realized after he created man on the last day, that seems to be a regular theme. He said, I'm going to turn all the animals into man. And he was only able to turn the wolf's eyes human. Cool story.
Yeah.
Wolf eyes and human eyes are very similar, and that's a kind of another story. But
let me ask you real quickly for a little bit of clarification. When you said cognitive revolution, do you mean in their understanding or in their knowledge, or are they tied together?
We're part of the hominid family. So we go back, there's Homo erectus all the way back to Australopithecus africanus, which is 6 million years old.
Don't
Lucy,
make me repeat
right?
that. Yeah.
Australopithecus africanus. And those old species, like millions of years old, they're the ones that invented fire. They're the ones that did flint knapping, the Acheulean hand axe. We adopted all those things. Living in caves, Acheulean hand axe, flint knapping, controlled use of fire. We didn't invent any of that. We just simply received it, and we innovated nothing. With these giant brains, we're innovators, neuroplasticity, like we're creators. We didn't do anything with it. We created nothing for 250,000 years, running around in the savannah, and we improved nothing of the technology we received until 35,000 years ago, where we created everything. At one moment in time, when you look at all of the ritual burials and the cave art and all the digs, it all happened in one divine moment. And obviously it was probably 1,000 years, but in historical time, we went from nothing, all of a sudden, full like game pieces of musical instruments, complex ritual burials, just some deep symbolic thought that was obviously being explored in cave walls. We became culturally modern at 35,000
as a
years old.
result to the wolf, or adopting the tribe.
That's my take on it, and and many other people. There's a couple other hypotheses. Is that there was something to do with the stoned ape hypothesis of psilocybin, or something bumped our consciousness up, ayahuasca, or some sort of psychotropic maybe rewired us. Mm-hmm. Who knows? The aliens, the monolith. I don't know.
A lot of theories. Go ahead.
But irrefutably, at 35,000 years ago, we start partnering with the wolf, right? 33,000 years ago, snub-nosed wolves being buried with children.
Wow.
Basically, we have our dogs by 33,000 years. They're full-blown dogs. And they're not just buried in a hole. These kids have beads. Like we went from nothing to beads and musical instruments carved out of ivory. So that's a cognitive revolution.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question in this area, because I really want to get to Valor and I really want to get to K4 and understand what's going on there. So the question is, what did they teach us?
Yeah. My take on that is a common misquote of Charles Darwin is that evolution is survival of the fittest. Mm-hmm. And you can ask anybody this, they'll fill it in. Oh, fittest. Yeah, that's what it is. And it's not, Darwin never said that. That was a misquote that was actually almost a lie. It was manipulative. That was propaganda. What Darwin rightly said is that evolution is survival of the most adaptable. It's not the fittest. You don't win because you're the biggest or the strongest or the prettiest, or that's not why you win. You will win short term. If you're the fittest, you're going to win short term. Long term, the most adaptable always wins.
That makes sense.
And that's true. That's almost like a universal axiom as it relates to individuals, to families, to cultures, to species and businesses. Mm-hmm. You're right. So it is the Holy Grail. And people are trying to focus on fittest. If I can just be more effective, and if I can just be more, whatever that thing is. And instead of looking at their adaptability, and I've said this before, that choice, which is adaptability, is a function of awareness. If you are not aware, you do not get to choose. You do not get to adapt. You are asleep. Sleeping people do not adapt. They go extinct.
Wow.
That's just
I'm sorry, that one sink in.
And there are many species, and I'm holding a human skull now, that have an evolutionary response to adaptability. And evolution is the engine of adaptation. It works at a cellular level, a molecular level, a DNA level, is that we are constantly evolving. Many species have evolution built in, or adaptability built in. So when you look at a human skull, we have this big round forehead, which holds our prefrontal cortex, which is really the seat of consciousness, executive function, or free will. This is our awareness, and it's unique in the animal kingdom. There are other animals that do recognize themselves. Many of the primates do. Even wolves can recognize themselves. So neuroplasticity, which is a fancy way of saying learning, should have been the ultimate adaptability engine, because you don't adapt across multiple generations, right? Like evolution. You're adapting to the moment. And that's what choice is. Choice is a moment by moment adaptation. And yet we know it didn't work. I just told you that we spent 250,000 years with zero innovation technologically. It didn't work until, and I'm holding my wolf skull up, and there is no prefrontal cortex, got a nice smooth forehead, got some big old biting muscles here. This is called the sagittal crest on the back. It's where all the chew muscles attach. We have none. If you feel the top of your head, our chew muscles end right at our temples up here. And the wolves, they go all the way up here. Wolves outsourced their adaptability. They outsourced it into culture, meaning that they developed basically 4 different primary roles that exist within a wolf pack, and that they are taught, which means it's culture. It's not necessarily a design function. All animals have a hierarchy, like all systems. Everything has a hierarchy to it. If you look at lions, for example, there's low-ranking lions. I'm talking about the males now. And then you have all the way to the very top of the hierarchy, which is the big alpha male. And all the other males are fighting to get that at the top, because that's where you get all the females. And once you do displace the top lion, the new king of the jungle goes around and kills all the other cubs to replace his genetics. And that's a single axis hierarchy that almost all animals run off of. Not wolves. Wolves developed a second axis, which is not just assertiveness, it's also connectivity. And if you place these 2 axes perpendicular to each other, then you have a quadrant-based system. And basically, that's the infrastructure of the wolf culture. Their kinship system consists of wolves that they're fitted into those 4 boxes of behavior along assertiveness and connectivity. And it's like a basic psychometric or assessment that many people do. And so the wolves have been running that for 5 million years. We've only been running it for 35,000. So if there's anything that transformed us, it is that was a profound, and we don't know if we had some other version of that. We may well have, but it certainly was one of those things that we had to adopt, because we did not domesticate the wolf. The wolf domesticated us. The wolf is the apex predator on a global scale. They are the most adaptable terrestrial mammal that we have ever seen. They live on the coasts and they hunt fish. They live in the deserts. They live in the mountains. They live in the forests. They're global. So they win. They were the most adaptable, successful apex predator on planet Earth. We were a low-level scavenger that was going extinct. So we came into the wolf kingdom in Europe as beggars, and we were graciously accepted by this ruling royalty of Europe. So we adopted their system, and it worked. It was obviously symbiotic. We were able to kill things from a distance. We're able to do certain things. So it worked. It obviously, they got their needs met as well.
I was going to say,
So
it's almost like we were their pets at first.
oh, for sure. Yeah. The Native Americans, and this, of course, is way later, but they would partner. The wolves and the Native Americans would partner on hunting bison. Wolves had vastly better scent. The Native Americans always knew where the bison were because they knew where the wolves were heading.
Oh.
And for a wolf to go in and attempt to kill a bison, that thing is the size of a truck, and you're going to lose some bones trying to kill a bison with your face.
Yeah.
Humans, we have a very different technology. Like, we're not running in trying to bite the bison, we're throwing spears at it. The Native Americans would always leave some of the prime parts of the animal for the wolves.
Smart.
Because the wolves are the ones that led us there. It was a legitimate partnership.
That's beautiful.
And the wolf is the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really want to hear about valor, but I think it's incredibly important to talk about K4 and what you're doing for young men and men in general, because I asked one of my podcast guests that I really respect in terms of his leading men. I said, what do they do? He said, find a mentor, find a man, not a woman, a man who has lived, who has the tools, who can teach them. And that's what you do on a very big scale. So please tell me what that is. And
this is not dismissive, but women create boys and men create men. Men require other men to initiate them into an adult psychology. Somebody who is capable of being awake and serving and handing over the adolescent currency of external validation, immediate gratification, for the more valuable currency of service and kingdom. And men need men to do that. And they have always had a rite of passage process where the older men would basically symbolically kill the boy so that the man can be born. You don't get to have both of those. You don't. And for all the men who are listening, none of us have been initiated. And so we still have an adolescent operating system running in our chest that says, we don't have to do hard things, or I should get to play video games or watch porn, or like, I get to do these things. I'm a little boy. And that's not the case with men. With men, you are required to move into the position of service to something larger than yourself. And that is the heroic journey that every plot line of all of Star Wars and Harry Potter, and it is a rite of passage story. And men,
I was just going to say, in indigenous cultures, that's still happening. Yes.
Yep.
And it used to happen here with the Native American cultures, and it may still. I'm not an expert. But what about bar mitzvahs too? Is that why that happened around that time? Is that
100%? Yeah, that's a classic initiation.
Okay.
Bar and bat mitzvahs is that you learn certain myths of your people. You go through a process where there's a symbolic death, a baptism in some ways. A baptism is not a blessing. It's a ritual drowning.
But that feels like it's too early.
It is. But I'm just saying that there's a death and a rebirth.
Yeah, I see.
That is the nature of that thing.
Got it.
So K4, when we're talking about those 4 roles of the wolves.
Yes. Okay.
K4 is king of all 4 of those houses.
Ah.
So we refer to those houses as archetypes. And the 4 of them, we have a sovereign, which is the creative king or queen. We all have a warrior aspect, which is competitive and driven and protective. We all have a lover, which is compassionate and relationship oriented. We have this magician archetype, which is not only spiritual, but focused on mastery. And those are those four roles that are outsourced into our culture, our friends, the people in the workplace. But we also have those four roles within us. And there's one, which is dominant, which we look at as our core identity or our personality, if you will. And then we generally have one that's very weak and underdeveloped. And that's our Achilles heel. It's the thing that just constantly trips us up one more time. Oh, I did that same thing again. Becoming aware that we have these four archetypes within us and healing the broken one and also controlling the dominant one allows us to, as men, to become the king of the four houses, which is the most adaptable, the most successful, and the most capable of service to something larger than ourselves. So that's that generative, benevolent father or the benevolent king that it is an ideal, but it has existed throughout time. There has always been some sort of a combination of the two options that are currently given to us as men, which is one, you get to be a good guy. You're a nice guy. But you get friend zoned a lot by all you pretty girls. Oh, he's just so sweet, but he just doesn't have that chemistry.
Edge. There's no
you're the
edge.
Nice guy. Yeah, you're a nice guy. Or you get to be the powerful man who is morally corrupt, the bad boy. I'm a politicians and so you either choose one of those two roles as men because that's what's given to you. You're either out there hustling and getting yours, or you're being a super nice guy and trying to be virtuous and getting walked on. But there has always been this heroic ideal, which is the good man who is also powerful. We all know exactly who we're talking about. And it's who we make movies about. And yet it's not available in reality in our current culture, that heroic ideal. And that's really what K4 is about, is how do we reclaim that? Where does it exist? Who's modeling it? Who are those men? And there is a movement in the world where we're starting to look at some of these men like Jocko, and there's a whole wave of these heroic men who are virtuous and noble and savage, absolute ferocious warriors. There's a heroic ideal that is coming back into vogue, and K4 is part of that journey.
So this is an empowered king, man, which means, because I don't want people to get mixed up with, there's a lot of talk about the page and how that's where you were talking about government earlier, the control, and that's not what you're talking about in terms of.
No, that's been so dead for decades.
The patriarchy
has been dead for decades. There's 90% of the people in prisons are men. 80% of the homeless people are men. The worst jobs are going to men. Men are failing out of high school and college at alarming rates. There's no patriarchy left. That is, feminist movement has rightfully gone to war with the patriarchy in the 60s and 70s, and it needed to happen in the same way the civil rights movement needed to happen in the 60s. But after the battle had been won, that there was workplace equality and there was women's sports and Title IX and equal pay for equal work, when all those battles had been won and the concessions had been made, the war continued to the point where we're seeing men disengaging from society now because it's that awful. Because we are constantly being villainized as being toxic and patriarchal. And it's very hard to keep men engaged in society these days. They're leaving in droves. They're not getting married. They're not participating. They're not dating. They're disengaging from the world because it is that toxic for us to be in the world. The suicide rates are alarming. So if any of the people listening, the women listening, and you love men at all, things are very bad for men right now. Just particularly in just the liberal arts of colleges. There will be, I think it's like only 30% are men now choosing to go to college because it's such an unwelcoming place. for men. So
is it also because they're not getting, when they come out, they are totally in debt and they don't really have a career? Or are there
that would
other
affect men and
factors?
women. That would
Both,
affect men
yeah.
and women
Okay.
together in general.
Yeah. Good point.
There definitely was the need to recalibrate society, but now the pendulum is swinging back the other direction.
So the goal of K4, and then please talk to me about the first responders.
Well, Valor touches on this too, is that the vast majority of suicides are men. Where's the patriarchy in that?
I don't know.
It was one of those questions, like, so why are the majority of people on the streets men, in prison, men, doing the worst jobs on the planet, men, killing themselves, men? Where's the patriarchy in that?
Let's define patriarchy. How do you define patriarchy? I think that'll help me.
I think you use the term. What would you define as patriarchy?
That power and wealth and control and the laws and the rules and all of that come from men, benefit men.
Correct. And so pointing out that all of the worst jobs, all the prisoners, all the homeless, all the suicides are men. How's patriarchy working for us? There are all the billionaires. There's probably some female billionaires. There are definitely billionaire women, but yes, there's a thing called the Pareto principle, which is there's a unusual functioning axiom in the world that explains why only a few amount of stars are gigantic and only a few amount of cities grow huge and only a few amount of the people who are on the radio. And it explains why a very thin corona of either people or things or objects tend to gather most of the resources. And it is true that most of the people in charge in government and in wealth are men. So that is oftentimes just explained as that must be the patriarchy. And really what it is, it's the people who are the most assertive, the ones who are willing to do nothing else but that. They don't care about anything else. It explains why there are certain sports figures, Gretzky and Michael Jordan, and they do nothing else. Tiger Woods, they don't have families, they don't have well-rounded lives. They only are focused obsessively on the accumulation of money, points, or power. Those happen to be all men, almost always men, almost always. So those men have fought their way into the leadership positions of the world. And most men are just normal people like me who want to be well-rounded, want to be the king of the four houses, who have families and who are doing good things in the world. And so Valor is a resiliency program for us. And this one is not just men. Valor is for female veterans and first responders also. And what we're seeing is coming full circle with the adverse childhood experiences that tend to move people towards careers in first response. Most police and fire have 3 times the amount of early childhood trauma as the average civilian. And so those people are the ones that are killing themselves at a horrific rate, because you and I, we will generally have, I think the number is under 5 traumatic events in our life, which means you had to deal with a car crash where you saw a dead body. Oh, and you're talking to your therapist about it. Like, it stayed with me. I remember back in here and I've never been the same. Police have over 1,000.
Ooh.
And there's a time frame on this. I can't remember what the time frame is, but the things that those people do and they see and they experience is just completely off the scale and the charts of trauma. And we're not preparing them for that. We're not giving them the resiliency tools to be able to survive in those and thrive in those adverse careers. So Valor is a combination of a lot of anthropological stuff, in that we have always had men and women in our tribes who do hard things. And we have found ways to transition them and reintegrate them and heal them back into the tribe. We have always had that. And they are time-tested, battle-tested techniques that bring our warriors home. And we could spend a whole episode on that.
Yeah.
But we have none of those for our returning veterans or our police or our fire or trauma nurses. We have no rituals for them. So there's a lot of psychoeducation about it, and there's a lot of rituals involved. So Valor's I formed this with my partner, Joshua Wenner, genius, and he's another veteran. We built that for those. And we actually just went and worked at a prison a couple weeks ago with the Compassion Prison Project. And that would be another great lady named Fritzy who runs that. Would be a great guest for you. Super powerful woman, just a treat. So she goes into prisons.
Love it.
And she brought me in, and we worked with the veterans within a prison up in San Jose. And I did my resiliency work and she did hers. But yeah, it's an incredibly important need, because the resiliency conversation used to be held with what we're just talking about with our vets and our police and fire. They're the canaries in the coal mine of mental health in America. I think, oh, I hope that the veterans aren't doing better. Thank you for your service.
Don't look.
Yeah. But the reality is that trauma resiliency threat has jumped the fire lines, and it's in our villages now. It's here, and it's burning down the school shootings. That's a lack of resiliency and trauma. All these school shooters are deeply traumatized people, and they're acting out.
Yes.
And youth suicide is skyrocketing. Obviously, youth addiction, depression, anxiety. This is all resiliency conversations. So it's no longer just in the veteran space. It's in our space. And it would behoove us to get very active, very fast in shoring up our resiliency work if we're going to continue living in this grand experiment of humanity.
So we need to get you in every elementary school or high school. Where should we start? Across the country.
With the parents.
Get
me with the parents.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Amazing work. There are like 4,000 podcasts in you, and we're over time, and I appreciate so much your being here. We could talk about how you walk your talk with the mind, body, spirit, and the whole thing. There's so much. You are such a great example for being of service and being a king or an alpha male. But
okay.
Am I not correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with your alpha female, you have, an amazing wife and family, and you're walking your talk. So this is,
thank you.
Yeah, this is real stuff. Thank you so much for being here. Please, I have one more question for you, but where can people find you?
My website is philipfolsom.com, and Philip with one L, Folsom like the prison. philipfolsom.com. K4 is k4men.com. Letter K, number 4, men.com. Be careful. Don't put a space in between K4 and men, because then you'll just get men.com. It's a very different website.
Oh, dear. Oh, my goodness. You have a podcast too, yes?
Yeah.
Moving right along.
I've made that mistake before accidentally.
Oh, my gosh.
Sent the link of warning. K4 space men.com.
Oh,
it's a very different website than mine. So. And then valorresiliency.com is Valor. And I have a podcast out with my partner, Joshua Wenner. It's called the Wenner Folsom Podcast. And we talk about resiliency work and leadership work.
I'll put it all in the show notes. And in the interest of time, here's the last question. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. How do you recommend to the listeners that they wake up and live their most alive lives?
Oh, that's really good. Okay. First of all, you shout out to the world or God or the universe, whatever your framing you have on that. And you say Marco, and then the world will say Polo. And if you're facing the right direction and doing the right things, it'll be loud and resounding, and you go that direction. And if you don't feel anything, you don't hear anything, and it's very faint, then do something different. And keep doing that.
Directions. Wow.
Just become aware of all the things you're doing, and every action, every statement, every choice is a Marco out into the universe, and it does respond, and
That,
you have a compass, and you can navigate your life, and it's built in. It's called your intuition.
that is one of the best answers I've ever had. Marco Polo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If
You're
you
welcome.
found helpful nuggets or inspiration in this episode, please share it with someone you care about. The more we give for the sake of giving, the bigger the difference we can make. And now, beautiful humans, please go out and live your most alive lives.